guys, it's Caitlin. Welcome back to my channel. So first off, I really hope this is in focus because it's been a while since I've used this camera and kind of forgot what my settings were. Anyway, we are filming an isolation book haul today. So I have bought a fair few books over ISO. I didn't actually think I'd bought that many, and then I went to make my list of things and I'm like, that's a bit much. This video is kind of going to be split in two because I do have the physical books that I've purchased and then I have the ebooks that I've purchased. So we'll start with the physical and then move on. Also, there are a fair few books on this list. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but I'm going to try not to give really big descriptions for all of them, and most likely I'm going to end up doing that anyway, so I apologize if this is long. The first two books that we bought are White Hot Kiss and Stone Cold Touch by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So that's book 1 and 2 in the, what's it called? The Dark Elements series. How pretty are these covers? Like, I have the third one in the original cover, and like, let me just say, I much prefer these ones. So we might be making another purchase to get the third one, but anyway. So the series has been out for a little while, but if you don't know what it's about, it does follow our main character Layla. So she is half demon, half gargoyle, and she has a crush on a warden, Zane. So he's kind of like a gargoyle as well. Only problem is that 1, he thinks of her as a sister, and 2, she has this really shitty ability where if she kisses anyone with a soul, it'll actually kill them. That includes Zane. But then we meet Roth, who's a demon, so the whole soul thing doesn't really apply there. So but then Layla finds out that she may kind of definitely is the reason for a violent demon uprising, so kissing the enemy who's a demon doesn't really seem like a big deal anymore. Honestly, this is one of my favorite trilogies. I reread it like twice or 3 times in the same year, I think, so would definitely recommend this one. The next two are Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. So these came out a little while ago. Almost everyone has either read them or heard of them by now, so I am very late to the bandwagon, but I finally got around to reading these like last month, I think. So this is set in the lovely area of Ketterdam, note the sarcasm, where one of our main characters, Kaz, is offered the opportunity to become insanely rich if he can pull off this heist that is almost like impossible, but with the right crew he might just be able to pull it off, and that's pretty much like all you can say without really spoiling any more of this. It's good. Moving on. I don't know why these are all coming in 2 so far, but the next 2 are Unhinged and Ensnared by H.E. Howard. So this is books 2 and 3 in the Splintered trilogy. I did read these for, what did I read it for? Booktubeathon? Like 2 years ago, I think. So this is an Alice in Wonderland retelling. It's a little bit slow in the beginning, but trust me, it is highly addictive once you get past that part, and also features a really banger love triangle that I actually enjoyed. Next, we have A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. So this is book 2 to A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which is a pretty freaking amazing Beauty and the Beast retelling if you haven't read it yet. It's really unique because it's a mix of like fairy tale and the modern world, because our main character Harper isn't actually from this like fantasy realm. She's from DC, like Washington DC. Then she just gets nabbed in the middle of the night when she's trying to help a stranger. She gets taken to Emberfall and is just the next in a long line of girls who may possibly be the answer to Prince Ren's curse. Another very unique thing about this book is that the main character actually has cerebral palsy, so she faces several disadvantages throughout the book, but she's constantly persevering because she's a badass and we stan. If you've seen any of my vlogs recently, then you most likely know what books are about to come next, because it's all I've literally been reading recently. This is just a disclaimer that a majority of the books I'm going to be talking about next, both physical and ebook, are going to be male-male romances. So if that's not exactly your cup of tea and you don't really want to hear about those kind of books, then feel free to just click off the video. I won't be offended. If you are interested, or if you've never quite branched into the genre and you'd like to maybe get some suggestions, then stay tuned because we have quite a lot that I'm going to go through. So the first one is Devilry by Marley Valentine. So this follows Elijah, who is 18, and he was raised in a very strict Christian family, and I'm pretty sure his dad was actually the priest. I could be wrong about that. It's been a little while since I read it, but they just stopped treating him the same once they found out that he was gay. So when he graduates, he moves across the country to attend King University, where he quite literally runs into and topples over the hottest guy he has ever seen. And this guy Eli just so happens to be his uni lecturer, Cole, so they almost instantly feel this insane attraction to each other, but obviously student-teacher relationships are quite frowned upon, especially in a school this prestigious. Also, just a little bit of a warning, this book does feature an age gap. If that's not really your thing, I think it's about 14 years. Another cool thing about this book is that it's actually signed, which I'm in love with. The next book is Without You, also by Marley Valentine. So this follows Deacon and Julian. So Deacon's brother Rhett recently passed away of cancer, and on the day that Deacon was going to fly back to Seattle, his mum's just asked him to check in on Julian, who was Rhett's boyfriend, because they haven't seen him since the funeral. Some kind of connection was established between them when they saw each other that day, but it's another year before they see each other again when Deacon comes back home to kind of just spend the anniversary of Rhett's death with his family. Neither of them really know what to make of the connection between them at first, and there is definitely a bit of guilt there because Julian was Rhett's boyfriend and Deacon was his brother, so there's definitely some tension happening there. But it really is a beautiful story, and it's one of my favorites of all time, so do not let like the kind of depressing blurb fool you. I didn't pick this up for about a month when it was in my Kindle, and I'm regretting not picking it up sooner because it is bloody brilliant. Alright, we are now moving on to all of my Kindle books, and this is where the majority of them are, so let's see how we go. So you are going to notice several authors repeating here because I kind of went on a bit of a binge. Yeah, just keep that in mind. So the first two books are part of a duology, so that is Remember Me When and Forget Me Not by Brooke Blaine. So Eli is a paramedic who had a little bit of a distance crush on this guy that he saw at the servo almost every weekday morning when they went there to get a coffee. And Eli finally learns that his name is Reed after like 3 months of ogling him from afar. But their mornings take a little bit of a turn for the worst when Eli takes a call responding to a motor vehicle accident not even 15 minutes later and immediately recognizes Reed's car in the collision. Reed doesn't have any memories from the last 10 years of his life, but he somehow remembers Eli in the back of the ambulance telling him to fight and to hold on, and so he kind of clings to Eli's friendship because at the moment it's the only thing that's really familiar to him. Let me just tell you, this duology will break your heart and put it back together again multiple times, and you will be thankful for it. The next two are A Little Bit Like Love and A Little Bit Like Desire, also by Brooke Blaine. So these are the first two books in a trilogy, still waiting for book 3 to come out, and I'm really excited about it. So A Little Bit Like Love follows Jackson and Lucas. So they met and were kind of together for a little bit when they attended the South Haven All Boys Academy, but that ended when Jackson just disappeared out of thin air the day before their graduation. Fast forward 8 years, Jackson is back in South Haven to complete a business deal, and he just can't stop himself from seeking out Lucas, and that's the guy whose heart he didn't even know he broke, and the guy he hasn't stopped thinking about for the past 8 years. Now, A Little Bit Like Desire follows Shaw, so he is Lucas's friend, and he is introduced in book 1, but again, you don't need to read it to be able to read book 2. So this book, let me just preface, it has a very sexy opening chapter where Shaw gets down and dirty with a mystery man in a dark room, and as much as he wants a repeat, the whole point of the dark room is to not know the identity of the other person that you're in there with. Until Trent Knox, the former frontman of one of the biggest rock bands in the world at the time, walks into Shaw's tattoo parlor and opens his mouth, and Shaw immediately recognizes the voice as the man from the other night. Shaw's only real problem is that Trent is a bit of a womanizer, and so he doesn't really want to be anyone's experiment. Now, this book, while it does have a little bit of a rock star trope, it's not kind of the cliche, like, always on tour and really heavily focusing on the rock star, like, plot line. It's actually a bit of like a subplot, so that was why I really enjoyed it, because I am actually not a big fan of the rock star trope. The next, oh, I'm so excited. It's another trilogy co-written by Ella Frank and Brooke Blaine. So it is the Elite trilogy. So that has Danger Zone, Need for Speed, and Classified, which all came out this year. This is absolutely another one of my favorite series of all time, and it does get compared quite often to Top Gun, but a gay version, and look, you can kind of see it. So this is where 10 of the best pilots in the Navy have kind of been offered this chance to participate in a competition called the Elite. So that's where we're going to figure out who is the best of the best. So we follow two pilots, Solo and Panther, who happen to run into each other in a seedy bar on the outskirts of town while they're looking for a hookup on the last night before they have to spend the next 10 weeks at NAFTA for this competition. Thing is, they don't know who the other is, but there is immediate sexual tension between them, but it doesn't go too far before Panther feels Solo's dog tags and immediately cuts it off because he doesn't hook up with anyone from the military, especially since he's not actually out. What a shock when they both rock up to NAFTA the next morning and realize that they're actually going to be competing with and against each other, and only one of them can come out on top. Next is Fake Out by Eden Finley. So this series is actually called the Fake Boyfriend series. So if that is your kind of trope, then you will definitely enjoy this. So Fake Out follows Damon and Maddox. So everyone in Maddox's hometown thinks he's gay, even though he's actually straight, because he told his ex that he was gay when the pressure to kind of marry his childhood sweetheart just became a bit too much, so he up and buggered off to New York City and kind of left her to deal with the fallout. Years later, he runs into his ex in New York because she's there for her bachelorette party, and she invites him and his boyfriend that he has conveniently made up on the spot to come to her wedding because some people just pulled out and she has some space. Maddox's best friend suggests that her brother Damon fill in because he actually is gay, and they make a deal, so Damon agrees to be the fake boyfriend if Maddox will hook him up with a hockey athlete because Damon's a budding agent. The only problem here for Maddox is that he is now really confused as to why he is having kind of sexy dreams about Damon and why he can't stop fantasizing about kissing his fake boyfriend. Next is a trilogy by Ella Frank. So it is the primetime series. So that has Inside Affair, breaking news, and headlines. If you watched my last or one of my last reading vlogs, you will already know how much I love this book because I couldn't stop talking about it. So Xander is a major TV presenter and everything's hunky-dory until his boss comes in and just says, look, you've been receiving a couple of threats over the last couple days and they're progressively getting worse and more personal. So you have not even 24 hours, you have like till the beginning of work tomorrow morning to find someone to be your bodyguard or just full-time security, or you're getting whoever I stick you with. So Xander goes to his best friend's brother, Sean, who is a good detective with the Chicago Police Department, and just says, I need a name, give me a name, and Sean is just kind of pissed off that this is happening to his brother's best friend, so he's like, I'll do it, but it has to be done under the guise of being boyfriends, because Xander doesn't want anyone to know that he has a bodyguard or security, so fake relationship is done. As their relationship and their connection kind of deepens as friends first and then as more, the threats just progressively get worse, but it only seems to bring the boys closer together. Next is the Sunset Cove Duology by Ella Frank. So this is Finley and Devil's Kiss. Now they can be read as two standalones. It probably will make a little bit more sense if you read them both, especially if you're reading some of her and Brooke Blaine's other books, because there are so many spin-offs and connections happening in this world, it's not even funny. So Finley discusses the relationship between Finn and Brantley. So it was a student-teacher relationship that evolved into something more and lasted about 3.5 years before it all went squiff, shit hit the fan, and Finn ended up living in Chicago for the past 7 years. The only reason he comes back to Sunset Cove is because Brantley sent him a letter saying that it's time to come home. So when Finn gets back, Brantley's kind of holding out hope for their relationship, and Finn thinks that his 2-week vacation will just be enough time to fuck him out of his system. So we all know how that normally turns out. It's a bit of a roller coaster. I just say go for it. Now, Devil's Kiss also follows a student-teacher relationship, this time between Derek and Jordan. So they were both attracted to one another from the very beginning, but with some troubles in Derek's family life and then everything else kind of going on, they've just come to an agreement that nothing will happen between them while Derek is still Jordan's student or while he's still at college. Now, there's always been a little bit of a love-hate relationship between the two of them. They really get under each other's skin. So I guess the question is, what happens when one of them decides that they want more? Next, we have another trilogy by Ella Frank and Brooke Blaine. So this is the PresLocke trilogy. So we have Aced, Locked, and Wedlocked. So this is a series that actually ties in with the Sunset Cove duology because Dylan is actually introduced in Devil's Kiss. I didn't read Devil's Kiss before I read this one. You don't really need to, but I feel like maybe reading them in order would just make the progression of things a little bit smoother because I was a tad confused at times. It pretty much goes like you have to read, I think it's the Temptation series by Ella Frank, which has like Logan and Tate. That introduces Finn, so then Sunset Cove is actually a spin-off of this one. So then you read Finley and Devil's Kiss, where Dylan is introduced, and then Brooke Blaine has a whole other series where Ace is introduced, and then PresLocke was born. So that was really convoluted explanation, and I apologize. So this follows a big hotshot movie star, Ace, and also our stunning model, Dylan Prescott, that I've just talked about for like the past 2 minutes, as they come together to film Ace's new movie. Never mind that Dylan is the model that Ace has been eyeing on a big ass billboard in LA every day for like the past however many weeks. There is instant attraction between these two men, but while Dylan is out and proud, the media is still waiting for Ace's kind of first relationship, I guess, after his press conference a year ago where he came out to the public. So it really focuses on the pressures of the media in a Hollywood situation and whether or not these two men can actually come together and work things out in spite of it. In my personal opinion, the first book wasn't actually my favorite, but books 2 and 3, holy shit, like 5 stars. So if you read the first one and it isn't to your liking, just please persevere at least to the second one. See how you feel. The next one is Better Be True by Andy Gallo and Anita Sunday. This is actually book 3 in the series. I haven't read book 1 or book 2 just because the blurbs didn't really interest me, but if you guys have read either one of those and you enjoyed them, let me know and I might pick them up. So Nico is very flamboyant. He has a very unique sense of style, and many of his exes have actually told him that he is too much to deal with. He's just too much in general, and he's kind of worried that his new roommate Luke might feel the same. Doesn't stop him from having a crush on him though. Now enter our roommate Luke. He is an all-American jock, and he's just a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy and thinks that he is the guy that Nico would actually describe as boring. He's a tad hung up on his ex, so it kind of forces him and Nico to pretend to be boyfriends once, twice, maybe, possibly, definitely 3 times. So how many times do they have to keep pretending before they realize that none of this is actually fake? Next is Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. So I did actually DNF this book and then went back a little while later to finish it because the writing style just wasn't for me. Luke is kind of famous because both of his parents are rock stars, and while his dad was never in the picture, he's now kind of trying to worm his way back in. So one really badly timed photo of Luke on the front cover of a newspaper is the absolute last thing that he needs. So trying to clean up his image, he finds a fake boyfriend in Oliver, despite the fact that they have absolutely nothing in common. But Luke and Oliver both are a little bit complexed when something that was supposed to be fake doesn't feel quite so fake anymore. Next we have a trilogy, which is, I think it's called the Blackcreek Trilogy by Riley Hart. So that's Collide, Stay, and Pretend. So Collide follows Noah and Cooper. So they were best friends when they were like 10 to 13, I think, until one weekend while Cooper was away on a camping trip, Noah's family just up and left without a word. I think it's like 8 years later, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on it. Noah comes back to Blackcreek and Cooper quite literally runs into him with his truck. Since Noah doesn't really have a place to stay in Blackcreek yet, Cooper offers to rent out one of his extra bedrooms to him, but he is a little bit confused when the platonic feelings he had for his childhood best friend are slowly developing. That's a lie, it's not slowly. They're fastly developing into something more. Especially confusing when he is always identified as straight. Book 2, Stay, follows Wes and Brayden. I'm not going to spoil anything by going through these books. If you do want to read them as a standalone, by all means go ahead. You possibly could do it. It's just the fact that the characters are introduced in the prior books. Wes and Brayden, their story does start in book 1. So Wes is dealing with a sister dying of cancer, and him and Noah have kind of become friends in book 1. So when Noah and Cooper are having some troubles in a bar, Brayden steps up and offers to take Wes home because he's had a little bit to drink, and Wes ends up going home with Brayden for a night of fun. So this is the first time someone's actually left Brayden's bed before he's woken up in the morning, so that makes him instantly curious about the man. But the more time that he spends with Wes after his sister's death, and also his niece Jessie, since he's now looking after her, he realizes just how much he actually likes being around him. And likewise, Wes realizes that there's more to Brayden than he had originally thought. Moving on to book 3, so this is Pretend, and it follows Gavin and Mason. So once again, these two characters are introduced in book 2, but they don't get too much of a backstory. So Gavin is a gay man who is brought up in a very strict Christian household, and essentially his parents are telling him constantly that he is going to go to hell unless he kind of like repents and finds a nice woman to settle down with. Meanwhile, Mason came to Blackcreek to try and escape his family name after a big secret was revealed and he's realized he's kind of been lied to his whole life. These two guys seek comfort in each other despite really knowing each other, but they see something similar in one another, like kindred spirits, if you will. Next, we have two books by Christina Lee, but they are completely unrelated. So the first one is The Darkest Flame, and it's actually the book that I'm reading at the moment, and I wanted to go into it kind of blind, so I don't know too much about it. All I know so far is that it follows two guys, Smoke and Vaughn, and they're like motorcycle gangs and clubs and all that kind of stuff, and it's pretty interesting so far. Sexy times start almost right away, so you know, you can never really fault that, can you? But the second one that I actually have read and also talked about in my reading vlog is Have Mercy. So that follows Julian and Kerry. So Julian served 2 tours in Afghanistan before he was honorably discharged after a roadside bomb killed 2 men in his squad and also left him severely injured and diagnosed with PTSD. So he's a little bit restless in the city and ends up heading down to Wyoming for the summer to help out on his cousin Sienna's ranch. Now, Kerry is Sienna's ex-husband. So they divorced when he came out as gay about a year ago, but he stayed because not only is that ranch their shared business, but they also share a daughter who was recently diagnosed with leukemia and is now in remission. Julian and Kerry have a connection with each other. It's a really slow burn book if you're into that kind of thing. And after Kerry holds Julian through one of his nightmares, things start taking a turn for the serious, even though Julian is only here for the summer and it is most definitely temporary. Next, we have Rule Breaker by Lily Morton. So personally, this wasn't one of my favorites, and I don't actually think the Goodreads review accurately describes the book. So Goodreads describes this as a romantic comedy, and what happens when Dylan and Gabe, like assistant and boss trope going on here, when a chance encounter allows them to finally witness the attraction between them, and what happens when Dylan realizes like who Gabe is under all the layers of assholery that we've been blessed with over the past however many years they've been working together. And it's like, look, the blurb made it sound really fun and cute, and kind of like I knew from reading the reviews that Gabe was a bit of a dick. But let me just say, I actually found this to be a really toxic relationship. I did not really like reading about it, but that's not to say like, this is where I have like conflicting emotions, because I didn't hate it, but I really didn't love it either. Like there were certain parts of the book that I hated and there were certain parts of the book that I loved, and so I really don't know what to make of it. Next, we have the Four Bears Construction series by K.M. Newhold. So we have Corky, Nailed, Hardwood, and Screwed. You can read these books as standalones, but if you are interested in all of the characters, then they each have their own book. So I guess if you start with the fourth one, it's gonna kind of spoil you for everything that happens in the previous 3. So Corky follows Cole and Ren. So they meet at a bar. Ren is really drunk because he just got broken up with, so he is not in any state to hook up with anyone. 6 months later, they both meet each other at the same bar and they finally have a night getting down dirty. About a week later, Cole rocks up at Ren's door as his new contractor for his bathroom reno. So Cole is just straight up like nothing is going to happen while Ren is still a client. But afterwards. Book 2, Nailed, follows our boy Stone. So Stone moves into a bit of a fixer-upper house to keep him busy during his downtime, but for some reason his neighbor has absolutely hated his guts since the day he moved in. So Stone figures that if his neighbor's gonna be a bit of an arsehole towards him, then he might as well do something to deserve the attitude. Book 3, Hardwood, follows Ev. So Ev has always known that he was gay, but he kind of suppressed that part of himself through marriage and through having a daughter. And now I think his daughter is like 7 years old. He's divorced, sharing custody with his ex-wife, and he may or may not have his eye on his daughter's music teacher. But Watson, the music teacher, does not want to be anyone's experiment, no matter how much he might be feeling for Ev. And book 4, Screwed, follows Cole's brother Ollie. So Ollie is a little bit of a relationship fanatic. He falls in love way too easy, and he has several failed quick marriages to prove it. So when they're away in a different state for a friend's wedding, he may have accidentally, drunkenly gotten married to the other best man. And just maybe they're going to pretend that it's real to not only win a bet and like $2,000 off the other guys, but also to get the guys off Ollie's back for claiming that he's fallen too easily once again. He's jumped into another marriage, it's just gonna break his heart, and they're kind of just ribbing him and actually being kind of rude about it. So they might have done things a little bit backwards, but love is love, right? Next, we actually have a couple of graphic novels. So it is the Fence series by C.S. Pacat, or Pacat. So volumes 1 to 4 have currently been released, and also also it's like coming out as like a book now, and it was released in September and I still haven't picked it up. So Nicholas is the illegitimate son of like a fencing prodigy, and he just dreams of being able to train and compete. He gets accepted on a scholarship to King's Row private school. It's a very cutthroat world, and not only is he up against his golden boy half-brother, but also the mysterious Seiji Katayama. Next, we have the extracurricular activities duology, I think it is at the moment. No, it's going to be a trilogy. The extracurricular activities trilogy by Neve Wilder. So these can be read as standalones. The characters in book 2 are mentioned in book 1, but not focused on too heavily. So the first book is Want Me. So this follows Nate and Eric. So when you've got like 5 guys living in one house, one of them walking in on the other jerking off is kind of a given. It's going to happen. But something about the way Eric looked at Nate when he walked in on him, and the way Nate can't seem to stop thinking about Eric, has Nate thinking that maybe he's not as straight as he thought he was. So when Eric offers to help Nate study for an upcoming exam, of course he takes him up on it. It's completely innocent. At first. Now book 2 is Try Me, and honestly it's been a while since I've read it. I only read it once and I don't even remember the characters' names. I just remember that I really liked it. I think it was 4 or 4.5 stars on Goodreads, and it was sexy as hell. So I'm just going to leave the description to this down the blurb, as well as all the others. So you can check that one out for yourself if you want. Okay, now the next and last book in this haul, this has been so bloody long, is Bad Habits by Neve Wilder and Onley James. Okay, so I only finished reading this book like yesterday, and I'm still trying to gather my thoughts on it, so I don't think I would be able to give a very comprehensive description of it, so I'm just gonna go with the Goodreads one because honestly I just think it's better anyway. Smart-mouthed hacker Caspian escaped an abusive home at 16. Now he's one of the most sought-after black hat hackers in the world. Jonah is a ruthless contract killer with only one weakness: the vibrant runaway he took in years ago, Caspian. But Cass bailed when he turned 18, and Jonah has maintained a steady diet of eat, kill, sleep since then. A threat to Cass's life brings him back years later, not as the boy Jonah remembers, but as a hardened computer hacker with a price on his head, and a list of names everybody wants. The chemistry between them is as undeniable as it is dangerous. In a world of secrets and murder, trust is a liability and feelings can get you killed. But Jonah let Cass go once, and he's not willing to do it again, even if it means confronting his past, solving a twisted puzzle, and taking out half of New York City's seedy underbelly to keep Cass safe. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that is all of the books that I have to talk to you guys about in today's haul. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you would like to see more videos like this. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.